Hey guys, today we have Shika and she is having total 4 years of experience in Java, Spring Boot and microservices. And guys, this is Shika's second mock interview here. I will provide her first interview link in the description. And before moving ahead, if you want to give your mock interview, then fill the form below in the description. So now let's get started. Hey Shika, how are you? Can you please introduce yourself and your recent project in brief?
Yeah, so my name is Shikha Upadhyay, and I'm currently working as a Java developer. So my tech stack includes core Java, JSP Servlet, and also I'm working on a microservices as well. So using Spring Boot, JPA, and for the database, I'm currently using MySQL. So yeah, that's all from my end.
Okay, got it. So, can you please tell me in your current project, did you write any multi-threaded code? Have you faced any concurrency bug? And how did you find and fix it?
Yeah, so yes, I have encountered an error related to concurrency. So basically, what has happened, our transaction status was being updated by two threads.
Hmm.
Once it
Okay.
was showing status success, and from the
Mm-hmm.
other sublet, it was updating the data as a failed. So we
Mm-hmm.
found that multiple thread accessing that same status. So we have used for that case we have used synchronized block, so we haven't used that entire synchronized method. We didn't
Okay.
synchronize entire method. We just synchronized the part where the status was being updated. So thus we have used this concurrency steps, and thus
Got it.
we have solved the error.
Okay. Let's say you need to execute 1,000 tasks in parallel, but don't want to create 1,000 threads. So how would you design this?
Okay, so I have to create 1,000 tasks, but like I cannot create 1,000 threads again. So in Spring Boot, we have this custom. We can customize the thread using a thread pool executor, custom thread pool
Mm-hmm.
executor. Correct. So for that, we can define our own custom. Like you can give any name to that custom executor. Like for example, my task. And when you are like using that
Mm-hmm.
thread pool, you just name that, and thus you can use. You can initialize that. We have basically three options: capacity,
Mm-hmm.
core size, and max pool size. So in this way, you
Okay.
can do this.
Correct, correct. So in Spring Boot application, how would you configure an async executor with async annotation? And also what happens if you do not configure a custom task executor?
Yeah, so basically, what has happened in my notify service? Yes, we have used
Mhm.
at the rate async method, but we haven't
Mhm.
enabled it. Like in the main class, where actually
Mhm.
Spring Boot's run service main class, there you have
Mhm.
to annotate at the rate enable async. So
Mhm.
even yeah, if you don't like define there your custom thread pool executor, Spring Boot
Mhm.
by default uses its own fog join pool called, because this is their internal Spring Boot's internal pool. But
Mhm.
what has happened, for production basis, it is not a good way, because
Mhm.
sometimes multiple transaction can happen, and there can be a memory load. So you should, like, I will suggest that you should initialize your own custom thread pool executor, so you can, yes, at the use at the rate async, and inside
Mhm.
you can name your custom thread pool executor name.
Correct, correct. What's the difference between callable and runnable?
Yeah, so basically callable and runnable is a method of executor service. So
Mhm.
runnable does not gives you any result, while
Okay.
callable thus gives you a result. So if you want to like get the what callable results gives you, you can
Mhm.
use future dot get.
Okay, that is correct. Hey guys, I want to share something important with you. Actually, Shikha prepared from our interview preparation kit and cracked multiple interviews. We have also referred her to the multiple companies. So guys, let me tell you, this interview preparation kit has four main parts. First is complete interview preparation material. It is a step-by-step material made by me, expert and MNC's interviewers. 99% of the questions asked in interviews are covered in it. Second is two real enterprise client projects, code and video recorded sessions are there, and you can add this in your resume. Third is lifetime chat support. Here you can ask your doubts anytime. Fourth is referral support. Here we help you to get referred to the top MNCs. So guys, basically the material is organized as per your experience level and covers Java, Spring Boot, Spring Security, Spring Data JPA, microservices, Kafka, Maven, Git coding questions, Stream API coding questions, and many more. You can buy just the complete interview preparation material or the full kit with project supports and referrals. I have added the links in the description below. So now moving to our interview. And guys, before moving to our interview, since Shika is here, so we can ask for a feedback. So Shika, can you please go ahead?
Yeah, so basically I've used that material and definitely it is very helpful. Like will understand like much in it logical part specifically. So
Mhm.
yeah, just go for it. The material is very good.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving ahead, Shika, can you please tell me how would you run two async tasks in parallel and combine their result when both complete?
Yeah, so basically in my project I have used it. So like
Mhm.
suppose you want, sometimes what has happened, like you have to get some result and after that you also want
Mhm.
to get the output of that result and then
Mhm.
produce something new. So in that case you can use there is a completable future in Spring Boot.
Mhm.
So basically it was introduced in Java 8. So with the help of completable future dot run async, and then you
Mhm.
can use supply async and then combine
Mhm.
all completable future dot supply async. So in this way you can parallelly execute multiple tasks and result of this then combine it, then combine. So yes, in this way you can.
That is correct. What's the difference between synchronized method and synchronized block? And also, when would you choose one over the other?
Okay, so basically synchronized block means you have synchronized the entire method and
Mhm.
synchronized sorry, I didn't get your question. Synchronized block and synchronized.
Method.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, sorry. So synchronized block is like you don't want to like block the entire method, and
Mhm.
synchronized method means you just like synchronizing the entire method. It depends
Mhm.
on your business logic. Suppose you just want to synchronize the only part where there is a critical section. So in that
Mhm.
case, you say I will prefer synchronized block, not entire matter. And suppose
Mhm.
there is a transaction happening and the entire method is like
Mhm.
doing some transaction part. So on that case, use a synchronized block. Basically, I will prefer synchronized block because it does not put logs on entire thing. So
Okay,
synchronized block is much better.
got it. Suppose you have a method that throws a checked exception, but the interface it implements does not declare that exception. So how would you handle this situation? Can you wrap up it in a something runtime exception or other thing?
Yeah, because when you talk about interface, so interface is basically a contract. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot like directly propagate SQL exception there. So
Mm-hmm.
what I can do is I have two ways. Firstly,
Mm-hmm.
inside that matter, I will use try catch block, and the second
Okay.
way I can use customized runtime exception.
Hmm. That is correct. Have you ever
So
created a
basic,
custom exception
yeah.
hierarchy?
Custom exception hierarchy.
Hierarchy.
Yeah, so basically custom yeah, so basically yeah, so you can do this by for example, you can create your own custom exception class and you can extend by using runtime exceptions. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you want to like call that method, so suppose in a derived class you want to call that method, so you are extending, just extend that custom base class you have created and then catch the exception. So in this way you can do it.
That is correct. What is exception chaining and why it is very important in our projects?
Yeah, so basically exception chaining is like uh, one exception is inside the another exception, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the thing, like so
Mm-hmm.
why it is uh, suppose my payment get failed. All right, so
Mm-hmm.
I cannot throw exception like no payment fail because of db crash or db is not connected. So I cannot show exception like DB error or something.
Mm-hmm.
What I can do instead, I can wrap it inside another exception, and through exception as payment failed due to
Mm-hmm.
database timeout or something. So yes, in this way I can implement exception chain.
That is correct. Can you please explain Java memory model and where does an object live?
Yeah, so basically in Java memory model, we have a heap area, stack
Mm-hmm.
area, and also inside heap area, we have string constant pool. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, if we talk about object, the object is basically live whenever we create a new object, like object
Mm-hmm.
obj is equals to new object. So the object lives inside the memory, but the reference of it is held by the stack. So basically, stacks hold method area in yeah, method calls method area,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, reference, and inside a heap we have objects, and inside string pool, string constant pool, we have, like, if we create object using string literal,
Mm-hmm.
and if the object is already present, so string
Okay,
does not create the new objects again. So yeah, so in this way uh, Java memory model work.
got it. What's the difference between heap memory and stack memory?
Yeah, so basically heap memory is where new object is created there using
Mm-hmm.
when you use new keyword. And
Okay.
stack memory is like, suppose there are threads
Mm-hmm.
threads has its variable. So
Mm-hmm.
threads can access its variable which resides on stacks.
That is correct. Have you ever faced out of memory error in your production in your career?
Yeah, actually, once we had this out of memory error. So basically what
Mm-hmm.
has happened inside our project, like in some of the class, we haven't
Mm-hmm.
properly closed the connection, like we have the DB connection open, so we
Mm-hmm.
haven't closed. So what we had to do, like when we visualize why this is happening, like we check the
Mm-hmm.
heap dumps. Basically this is the way you can check. So when you check the heap dumps, there you can able to find the actual error why it is happening. So
Mm-hmm.
so the error was resources was not properly closed. So either you can close it manually inside final block, or the best approach is use try with resource.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Okay,
this was a case where I encountered this problem, and thus
got
it
it.
solved.
Okay, how did you debug a memory leak in your project if you faced, and what tools specifically did you use?
Specifically, we have this Eclipse Mat,
Okay.
Eclipse Mat, and Visual VM something. It's checks. These are the debugging tools where we, with the help of this, we can check the
Okay.
memory leak.
So as we know, garbage collector is useful for removing unnecessary memory. Then why still we see memory leaks in our project when we have garbage collector?
Because sometimes what has happened, like object reference is still held by it.
Mm-hmm.
It is not like as I give you the example that maybe that a garbage collector reference
Mm-hmm.
hold pool size become full, and also resources were not properly closed. So these are
Mm-hmm.
the things which, like, led the garbage collector did not work in that case. So we have these tools.
Correct, correct. Can you tell me the difference between minor garbage collector and major garbage collector?
Yeah, so basically minor garbage collector is used by young generations.
Okay.
Young So basically it is used to clean young generation memory. It
Mm-hmm.
is fast comparatively to old generation,
Okay.
comparatively to major garbage collector, because major collector cleans the old generation memory, and it requires a lot of time to clean it. So basically it's a bit slow comparatively to minor garbage collector.
Okay, got it. Can you please explain why lambda expressions was introduced in Java 8 and how they differ from an anonymous classes?
Yeah, so basically, if we talk about that anonymous class, so it provides you
Mhm.
the full implementation, right?
Okay.
It give you the logical full implementation. Whereas the
Mhm.
lambda expression, if you talk about, so basically it was introduced uh, so that we can work with functional programming.
Mhm.
So this is the main core reason like why lambda expression was introduced.
Got it. Um, in which scenario would you avoid streams and prefer a plain for loop?
Okay, so suppose we use for loop basically uh, where we have conditions, right? We have to
Mhm.
break, we have to continue with that. There is a critical part. Whereas
Mhm.
stream is like, as you know, okay, stream is like if you want to do some functional programming, you don't
Mhm.
want some like hard, hard, hard logic you want to apply. So in
Mhm.
that way, like if the logic is very easy or the
Okay.
operations are very easy, so in that case, yes, you can use streams.
Okay.
Whereas where the critical part is, then you should use for
And what
loops.
is vice versa? Like, in what scenarios would you prefer stream over uh, loop?
Okay, suppose I have data like I have to calculate the total transactions spent in a day.
Mm-hmm.
So in that
Okay.
case, I can like use Stream APIs because there is
Mm-hmm.
I just have to calculate the data and just store in, or I can like whatever I have to do with that data, like pass into another method. But if I have the logic where I have to create a
Mm-hmm.
like settlement part or reconciliation
Mm-hmm.
part, user should have a consistent in
Mm-hmm.
transaction. So at that time I cannot use string.
That is correct. Okay, so tell me what exactly happens when a Spring Boot application starts.
Okay, so basically Spring Boot application start inside main class we have Spring application dot run. So
Mm-hmm.
basically when Spring Boot application runs, first of all the IOC container collects all the bins. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So it uses application context.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, it does component scanning. So
Mm-hmm.
component scanning is done by like there are annotation at the rate component, at the rate repository, at the rate service.
Mm-hmm.
So Spring Boot catch that component scanning part, and after that there is a configuration part, like there is a been defined by using third party libraries or something, or you have mentioned something in your configuration file. So Spring Boot
Mm-hmm.
also scans it, and after that enable auto configuration parts come, where
Mm-hmm.
if you have defined some data source in your class, or suppose you are using Spring JPA, and
Mm-hmm.
also you are using Webflux, like Spring Boot we have Webflux, etc. So in enable auto configuration happens. After that, a embedded Tomcat server run, and after that, Spring application finally runs, and you can like send your HTTP request to it.
Yep, yep, that is correct. Okay, so can you please tell me the concept of component scanning and what happens if a component annotation class is outside the base package?
Okay, so during when Spring Boot application runs, so
Mm-hmm.
it does component scanning. It also uses reflection basically, because how Spring
Okay.
Boot gonna know that this class has this bin, or so it uses reflection. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
then it does component scanning part, so which is annotated by either at the rate service, at the rate component, at the rate repository, and
Mm-hmm.
so it is necessary to, because Spring IOC collect all the bits, and if we don't define inside that out of base package, Spring Boot will not be able to like create that bean, because it is outside the base package, so it will bean will not create.
Okay. Can you please tell me about Spring Bean lifecycle and have you used post contract annotation or pre destroy annotation ever?
Yeah, so basically, Spring Build lifecycle starts with uh, bin instantiation part. So firstly, bin definition is created, then bin
Mhm.
instantiation is happened, then there is dependency injection parts. So
Mhm.
after that dependency injection is there, and we have pre-post constructor. Before init, we
Mhm.
have this at the rate being pre post processor something. Before init it runs, and then being void spring initialization is happened, void init,
Mhm.
and after void init we have at the rate post constructor, where we can define our own logic, like what we want to configure or do in that part. So at the rate post construct. After then again
Mhm.
at the rate bin post processor run, and then finally if you used to like shut down, you can use at the rate pre restore.
Yep, that is correct. Okay, so among the scopes of Spring, could you please tell me when would you use prototype scope?
Yeah, so in Spring Boot, we Spring Boot bin, it has by default singleton.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to use prototype, so prototype means new object created every time. So
Mm-hmm.
suppose, for example, if I have to generate some reports, so
Mm-hmm.
and the report data is as per filter, like as per user apply many filters. So
Mm-hmm.
every time I need a new object. So in that case, definitely I will use prototype, where a uh, statefulness is matter. So at that
Mm-hmm.
time I will use at the rate prototyping.
Got it. How do you externalize secrets like database passwords in Spring Boot application?
Yeah, so basically, if I want to store the Spring deep, for example, let's take example, I have to
Mm-hmm.
store database password. So I will not directly store into my code. What I
Mm-hmm.
will do, I will externalize it. Like I will store my DB password in application dot properties. So yeah, I can save in that, or also I can use cloud services like it like AWS has AWS password manager.
Mm-hmm.
Kubernetes has a Kubernetes secret. So yeah, so you should externalize your password. Never store in source code.
That is correct. What's the difference between configuration properties and value annotation?
Yeah, so at the rate value annotation is basically used when you want to inject value from outside. Like you have defined some
Mm-hmm.
property like ID name or something
Mm-hmm.
in application property, then you can use at the rate value. And if you want to like at the rate configuration property, it's basically it's group the data. Suppose you have a configuration property where you have defined your app ID, app name, server version. At that time you should use at the rate configuration property.
Okay. Can you please tell me how does Spring Boot resolve property precedence?
Yeah, property precedence, we have different properties such as application dot properties,
Mm-hmm.
environment variable, and yeah, we can also store in use command line argument. So basically, which has higher priority, it means suppose command line has, we know command line argument has the highest property. So
Mm-hmm.
if I define my properties, if I'm defining my property inside at the rate application dot properties, and also in command line argument as well. So
Mm-hmm.
the command line argument will override the uh, application dot properties. And suppose we have environment variable, so
Mm-hmm.
environment variable will override the application property. In this way, this precedence is happened.
Okay. Uh, got it. Can you please tell me how would you design a global exception handling strategy?
Global exception handling strategy. Yeah, so basically, I can use at the rate controller advice and
Mm-hmm.
exceptional handler. So what
Okay.
you can do, you can create your own package. Inside that, you can customize your class.
Mm-hmm.
You can extend. You can use at the rate global exception at the rate exception global exception handle and controller advice. So whenever you want to use somewhere, so you
Mhm.
can, what you can do, use inside catch. You can use like throw new, and you can catch that exception or method name dot class. So in this way,
Mhm.
yes, you can customize this.
Correct, correct. Okay, so tell me status codes for resource not found, validation failure, unauthorized, and internal server error.
Okay, so yeah, resource not found is like very common. We have like status code as 404, and for
Mhm.
validation failure, like if you are hitting some API and data validation fail, so you
Mhm.
so API give responses for yeah, 400 as a validation failure. And for
Correct.
unauthorized, like if you're not authorized to use that API or
Mhm.
token is not proper, so in that case you will get 403. And for
Mhm.
internal server error, the status code is 500.
Yep, that is correct. Okay, and what would be for successfully deleting?
Sorry, successfully.
Successful deleting. Let's say we have an API and we are successfully deleting some data. So what would be the status code for that?
Two, 200. Like if
Uh,
you're your operation is successful, whether it is
Mhm.
update or delete, so it will
Mhm.
give you 200.
It will be 2xx. I mean, we can put 200, 201, or
200, 201 also that created, or yeah,
yep, yep.
this also.
Okay, so how would you avoid leaking stack traces?
Leaking stack traces in the sense whatever
Uh,
I have used inside my exception, it should not show the
yes, yes, logging.
API.
For example, you have added some crucial information.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, basically, like suppose I have some error, I cannot directly
Mhm.
show that error. Like suppose I'm getting a null pointer exception. So inside
Mhm.
the API response, I cannot directly show this as a, you got this run null pointer exception because this value
Mhm.
was null, or
Correct.
being something like that. So we
Mhm.
can, what we can do, you can we can use a custom or sanitize error for business purpose. Suppose there is some uh, we have got a null pointer exception, like we are
Mhm.
fetching some data from DB, but it is null. So I
Mhm.
cannot show that this data is null. Instead, I can use something like internal server error or
Mhm.
technical error or
Mhm.
retry after some time. So yeah, this
Mhm.
I can use.
Yep, yep, that is correct. In Spring Data JPA, what's the difference between save, persist, merge, and save or update?
So basically, yeah, in Spring Data JPA, save is used to like your for inserting the data. So
Mhm.
persist was like new entity. It is for new entity. Merge is for the to uh, to get the state from detached entity. Like merge is specifically used. It is
Copy
already
is state
detached. You
from a
have to
detached entity.
copy the state from the detached entity, and
Entity.
save or update entity. And save or update, it's depend on whether you have to save the data or update the
Mm.
data. So yeah.
Correct, correct. In a transactional method, if you modify an entity without calling save method, will it persist?
Yeah, suppose if it uses persistent hibernate context, so
Mhm.
definitely it will save the data. For example, you have got employee and e dot save, and again you
Mhm.
are setting e dot set city as Mumbai. So
Mhm.
definitely it will save because it you hibernate internally uses dirty checking because it is still
Mhm.
persisting.
Yep, yep,
It is
that
not
is correct.
completely removed.
Mhm. What's the difference between retry and circuit breaker in microservices?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, circuit breaker is like if you reach some threshold value, there is a threshold value defined. If you have reached that threshold value, circuit breaker will not again and again call that microservice, because in microservice there is a common things we face as like multiple service failure, or you can say cascading failure. So it, in that case, you can use @circuit breaker. So you can define a threshold value where you can say like, okay, at this threshold value you should call that services. Whereas in retry mechanism, uh, you define like how many times you want to call the services, like 4 times or 5 times. So but retry exhausts the services, whereas circuit breaker did not exhaust the resources.
Hmm. Okay. Um, have you worked with bulkhead pattern? And if yes, can you please explain it?
Bulkhead patterns, like suppose we have multiple services, the
Mm-hmm.
failure of one service should not affect the other. Like suppose if one one DB instance of service A has failed, so it should not affect the another service which is B.
Mm-hmm.
So I think bulkhead pattern is like one service failure should not affect the other service completely. It should work
Correct, correct.
independently.
Mm-hmm. Can you please explain what is Saga pattern and how it is different from two-phase commit?
Yeah, so we know that saga pattern is event driven, so it works on events. For example,
Mm-hmm.
nowadays we are using a Zomato,
Mm-hmm.
Swiggy, Zepto also. So what happen if you order something from Zepto and stock is unavailable, or suppose you customer is not available to receive that order? So in that case, what Zepto does, it gives you refund. So it is a compensate action, all right.
Mm-hmm.
For it does not uh, uh, like it just give you refund. It does not reverse roll back the whole transaction. It works on
Mm-hmm.
local transaction, right? Whereas if you talk about that two-phase commit transaction phase, so it maintains atomicity. Suppose I am transferring you
Mm-hmm.
100 rupees,
Mm-hmm.
but that 100 rupees should exist in my account. If it is not existing, I cannot send. So thus it maintains the atomicity. So basically, bank uses this patterns mostly for maintaining the atomicity, because otherwise inconsistency will happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so can you please tell me how do you ensure an event is not processed twice in the database?
Yeah, so yeah, this happens a lot. Like we have different entries of same transactions, right? So in
Mm-hmm.
that case, you can use like idempotency, which is very
Okay,
popular in micro services. So yeah, this ensure that uh, we did not get the twice entry of the same
got it.
transaction.
Got it. Let's say you have a table with 10 million rows and a query timing out. So what is your approach to fix this?
Yeah, so basically why this happens, because either what the query I have written, either it is scanning the full database, like full scanning
Mm-hmm.
is happening there. So I haven't used the indexes, and also
Mm-hmm.
I have not optimized my joint query.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Okay.
and I can also use that where exactly the which query is exactly taking much time, so I can
Mm-hmm.
like optimize it. And I will also, suppose I have millions of data to fetch, so
Mm-hmm.
I can not rely on like calling one by one. I can also use partition method.
Hmm.
So in this way I can solve this.
Okay. Okay, so let's say you have five microservices, then how would you trace a request across these five microservices?
Okay, so tracing, like we can use a trace ID or tracking ID to trace it. Like if you want to manually trace that, I have five microservice microservices and one transaction is happening, so I can to like I can use a tracking ID, and the same tracking ID I can manually search for it, or for the automated version I can use like open telemetry tools. So it will like it will find all the data across all microservices using that tracking ID.
Yep, that is correct. So let's say your colleague wrote a singleton class and you notice it is not a thread safe. So how would you fix it?
Colleague wrote a singleton class.
Mhm.
So basically, maybe he has like written a singleton class, uh, which is not like he has not synchronized the method.
Mhm.
Multiple thread are able to update the same data source. So I should check the double locking part. Like first, I should like I should define the variable as volatile using
Mhm.
volatile keyword, so that if multiple threads are going to share the same data, so inconsistency will happen. So for volatile will take care of visibility. One thread, like multiple thread A and thread B, both can
Mhm.
check the same value. And the
Mhm.
second thing, I can use double locking part. First I will check
Okay.
if instance is null. If instance is null, because I cannot synchronize the entire method, so for that case I first check if instance is null. So if I'm getting instance is null, then I can synchronize the block where the singleton new instance is created, like instance is equals to new singleton. So in
Mhm.
this way we create instance of singleton class. So yeah, so in this way I can do, or also I can use say enum in
Enum.
singleton in enum, right?
Mm.
So this
Right.
is the best approach.
Okay.
It
Yes, that
ensures
is
that
correct.
only one object is created.
Mhm. Correct. Okay, Shika, it's done from my end, and yes, it was a very nice interview. You have answered most of the questions, so yes, and the way you were explaining that is also very good.